Support for this podcast and the following message come from Corient. Corient provides wealth management services centered around you. They focus on exceeding your expectations and simplifying your life. Corient has been helping high achievers just like you enjoy their lives more fully, preserve their wealth, and provide for the people, causes, and communities they care about. As one of the largest integrated fee-only registered investment advisors in the U.S., Corient has deeply experienced teams in 23 strategic locations. Corient has extensive knowledge spanning the full spectrum of planning, investing, lending, and money management disciplines. Leverage Corient's exclusive network of experts to craft custom solutions designed to help you reach your financial goals, no matter how complex they may be. Real wealth requires real solutions. For more information, connect with a wealth advisor today at Corient.com. That's Corient.com. Corient.com.
When you visit Arizona, time is measured in moments, not minutes. Like the moment your work stress disappears as you kayak through the canyons. Or the moment you discover the life-changing effects of prickly pear chocolate. But nothing beats the moment you see the Grand Canyon for the very first time. Visit a new state of mind. Learn more at hereyouareaz.com.
Hey, welcome to Comedy Album Book Club. I'm your host, Jason DeLine, an actor and comedy enthusiast here in Toronto. And this podcast is the podcast where we listen to a comedy album that is either revered or hated or rare or influential or something like that. And we talk about it with some comedy peeps. Today, we have the album I'm Telling You for the Last Time by Jerry Seinfeld. This was recorded, it was streamed live on HBO as it was recorded August 9th, 1998 at the Broadhurst Theater on Broadway in New York. And then the VHS and DVD came out a year later. There are some discrepancies between the video show and the audio that you can get on Spotify, etc., but it's basically the same thing. It was recorded a couple of months after Seinfeld went off the air. It was really recent after that. Jerry Seinfeld was born in 1954 in Brooklyn, New York. He's 64 years old now. He has a degree in communications and theater from Queens College. He started doing stand-up in 76 at the age of 22. His first Letterman appearance was in 81 at the age of 27. He, of course, had the big hit TV show Seinfeld with Larry David that he says was based off of the Abbott and Costello show. Partly there were some influences from there. In 93 he had a in 1993 he had a special called Stand Up Confidential, and then he did this one, and he did another one called Jerry Before Seinfeld. So he's only really done 3 specials that we have videos of. He was also in The Marriage Ref. He was a creative force behind that. Didn't work out too well. And he apparently has a net worth of $950 million. He's doing very well. And of course, he also does Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee. That's enough about Jerry Seinfeld. We also have a few guests in the studio today. Of course, I have my producer with me, Matthew Ardill, a comedy nerd and great producer. How are you, sir?
Good, thanks.
Good to hear. I'm great. I'm very excited to be talking with the 2 gentlemen we have here today. One of them is a stand-up comedian and a sketch comedian. He's in the sketch troupe Vest of Friends. He's also on the podcast Vest of Friends and hosts an open mic for stand-ups first and third Thursday of every month at another bar. And it's supposed to be a fun, loosey-goosey, I think is what he said.
Did you write that down?
No, I remember that. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark
Hallworth.
Mark Hallworth.
Yeah, thanks, man.
How are you, Mark?
Good, man. You were talking about Seinfeld like he was going to show up. You were like, he was born today. He's here today.
Wouldn't that be a great surprise?
That'd be insane.
And here he isn't.
Couldn't find parking.
The other voice you just heard here is a comedian, and he hosts a show. Was it the first and second Tuesday, or first or second Tuesday?
Yeah, they just have scheduling stuff at Comedy Bar.
At Comedy Bar, it's called Pay What You Can't. Please welcome Chili Davidson.
Hi.
Hi, great to be here.
Great to have you here. And your favorite movie is Clifford with
one of my
Martin
favorites.
Short.
Yeah,
one
yeah,
of your
yeah,
favorites. Okay,
yeah.
you're backpedaling a little bit. I think you said before it was your favorite.
It was like one of my. It's like, I would say it's like number 2 or 3 for sure.
What are your top
Number one's
three?
gotta be some Chevy Chase thing.
Number 1 is the first vacation film.
Oh wow!
Solid
Wow.
number one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe like Raiders of Lost Ark or something is in there.
Okay,
too.
we took a left turn there. Okay, I'm following the pattern.
No,
Clifford
Raiders with
Vacation and
Chevy
then Raiders.
Chase.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, the Chevy
Sorry,
Chase
yeah, the
cut.
Chevy Chase Raiders, remember?
Yeah, before it bombed.
Yeah,
and we got
yeah,
Harrison
yeah,
Ford in there,
yeah.
yeah.
They're like, oh, he's a little goofy.
Yeah,
Smart
fun
ass.
though.
Get
Fun
Harrison
idea.
Ford.
yeah. It's like Fletch, basically.
Do you like any of the other vacation movies?
Yeah, I like them all. I
Yeah?
honestly, except for like the new one and the Eddie one. But I do like them all. I definitely think that Vegas is the worst if
It
you
is
haven't seen
awful.
the others. There's like funny moments in it if you like the rest of the series and you're like, oh,
Right.
like, that's funny. Like the part where he climbs the Grand Canyon is actually hilarious to me.
I actually laughed.
Or not
at
the Grand Canyon,
the Hoover Dam.
Yeah,
I kind of laugh at those stupid dam jokes too that Brian Doyle Murray does.
yeah. Randy Quaid.
Well, Randy Quaid says, "Is this a goddamn?" But the guide at the
Yeah.
Hoover Dam is Brian Doyle Murray.
Is it?
Yeah, Bill Murray's brother.
Wait, they make
he's in-
goddamn
he's in-
jokes of that?
He's in the first one, the
there's one.
Christmas one. I don't know.
He's in the Christmas
Christmas
one.
one.
Yeah,
He's also
he plays
in-
multiple characters.
I
yeah,
have to check on because I'm a big Brian
No,
Doyle Murray
100%.
fan.
yeah.
know
He
that
says,
guy's career.
ask all the damn questions you want,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you know, I'm your damn guide." And then so they make all these great damn jokes, but then Randy Quaid says, "Is this a goddamn?" And everyone just stares at him. It's
Chevy-
terrible.
Chevy goes,
Insane.
Eddie.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen Beavis and Butthead Do America? They use that
A
joke
long
in that
time
movie
ago.
too.
Yeah, they do, don't
He's
they?
like, I got a question. Is this a goddamn? And all the people are like, all the like old folks that they're on the tour bus with, just walk away from them. They're like,
Damn.
goddamn. Come on.
I wonder who did it first. Who did the
I
damn
think the
joke first?
Beavis and Butthead movie
that
may have done that
older?
first. I think it's older than
Think you
I
might
can't
be
imagine that
right.
Vegas
Vegas Vacation originated a lot of jokes.
I mean, that's not a great joke anyway.
Yeah. The
But
first
it's great
in the context of
first
Beavis and Butthead,
vacation
yeah.
to me
True,
is
true.
like a pretty close to perfect comedy in terms of like comedic character, the storyline. Like it just kind of works out that it's like it follows all the patterns. Like the other Chevy Chase movies, like Fletch and stuff, shouldn't really work as a comedy, but Vacation is like the perfect comedic character of like the idiot who's like very optimistic or whatever.
Right.
Like
Yeah, so so we had talked about doing this album. We talked about doing Seinfeld, but I think Mark, it was actually your
I pitched
suggestion
it, I
to do
think,
this.
probably, yeah.
Yeah,
This is
and,
probably the special I know the most.
Right, and you suggested Chili be on.
Oh,
it
yeah, I
because
knew Chili
you
would know
Chili's
everything
a
about
huge
this,
fan.
yeah.
So. So I'll put it to both of you then. Like Mark, what makes you dig this album, man?
Oh man, what a crazy umbrella question. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's funny, I guess. Like,
it's fun. Well, you could have chosen any album basically. So why'd you choose
well, I
this
think
one?
it would be one that I just know it inside and out. Really, in terms of
you watched
like,
it a million times.
I didn't watch it
Or
a million
listen
times.
to
It was
it.
cool. Yeah, I listened
Right.
to it. So it was cool to watch it today with you guys. If
Yeah,
the
today we
audience
watched
needs
it.
to know. Yeah.
Yeah, we watched it.
And it was great to hear the dynamics and stuff. And another a cool thing about this, and I'd be curious to get your input on this, Chili, too, is that he doesn't really have like a closer. He just sort of ends. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's just like, bye. Like, but Seinfeld's always been that guy because he talks about this all the time too. About he's like appreciative of like timing, where it's like you got to quit early and have people think that there will be more, and so people are like, damn it, if there's only like another 5 minutes, come on,
Interesting.
rather than go 10 minutes too long.
Because well, a lot of comedians, it feels like they end on their best thing, right? Like
Yeah,
the
it
thing
sounds
that
like a
they
story
wanna
that
live
has
in.
been crafted for a long time.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
and huge laugh at the end, right? Like a
Yeah.
big, or maybe a
Applause.
big callback or something.
Yeah,
but
that
it
ties it
feels like he
together.
peaks early in this special.
Well, I think all the peaks too are sort of unique. Like like the visual special that we watched today, the laughs are different than the audio one.
right.
And
it
so
might
it's
have been sweetened
interesting
for the audio as well. Sometimes,
Sure,
they'll do
yeah,
that.
for
But,
HBO or
but
whatever.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of hard to tell. Like, it's funny. There's one I can't remember that we just watched, a joke that gets a big pop that he has to pause for and wait. Something about men and women. It's in that bit. It's in the whole men and women chunk. I don't know.
The wedding one, maybe the.
It's always so
Oh
big
yeah,
to
the
just say
tuxedo.
men.
Tuxedo.
tuxedo, yeah.
Yeah, we dress them all the same, or they're all the same anyways. Why
Yeah.
we dress them all the same?
So it's
that gets
not-
a huge pop
Yeah.
in the video that doesn't happen in the
Because I
audio
think they
one.
filmed it on two separate nights. Like it's
I'm
all
sure
the
it
same
is,
Must
yeah.
night,
be, yeah.
but they must have filmed them on two because the special is live. So maybe either the night before as rehearsal, or I feel like he would have done it the night before because it's crazy to go from live to be like, let's just do that.
You'd
again.
think so, yeah. And that's very common with albums too, right? Is to
Yeah.
do 2 shows and then
Yeah.
you pick what you like better.
Yeah,
I think
Sometimes
it'd be
together.
risky as shit to do one or whatever.
yeah.
George Carlin's
Live specials are so rare. The last one they did was the Brian Regan one. I think that's the last one live at Radio City Music Hall.
Is that
They
right?
don't think they do live albums anymore because what a
Yeah.
risk.
It'd be an
That's a huge
insane
risk.
risk.
It would be a
Yeah.
thrill for sure.
Absolutely,
Like,
yeah.
I mean, it's like Saturday Night Live is the only show like they do that's like live anymore. That's why like 30 Rock and these shows started to do these because it's like
Yeah.
what it's backups and you see
Yeah.
it in this special.
Oh, yeah, it's wild.
One of the cool things about this special, I do think, and I didn't realize this when I first watched it because I was so young, is you see him stumble a couple times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a cool thing
Forget
about watching this
things,
today.
and
That's not in the audio too.
Right.
In the audio
It's very
version, there
raw.
aren't.
What's
very
interesting
false.
too is that it doesn't throw him in the least. You
No.
know, he's just such
So
a professional.
Well, I bet you in his head, he's like, God damn it.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
For sure.
Yeah,
He's
he's
Went
such
back
a-
and punched a mirror or something.
He's
Yeah.
such a polished comedian.
Yeah.
Which, I
You
mean,
can
I was
tell
saying
he's
before,
obsessive
is
about
like
it.
I think sometimes people's biggest criticism about him is he's completely opposite of some people like Gerard Carmichael or whatever,
Right.
who one of their things that people like about them is that they're not polished. And Jerry's like the monologue type comedian, like Brian Regan or whoever, was just like, boom, boom.
He also has that sort of vaudevillian showman type style. Like he seems like a comedian's comedian, you know.
Yeah.
It's just a very classic presentation. He's got modern
wearing a
sensibilities. Wearing a suit, and you know, very, you know, set up the joke and very observational. I mean, people say he sort of invented it, but he perfected it.
Yeah.
But it seems old fashioned to me when you see him now. I mean,
the
it all
joke-
works.
the jokes certainly hold
They're
up, though, which is
timeless, for
interesting,
sure.
too. Yeah, which I think is kinda neat.
I'm of a weird camp that I think that I've seen him live a couple times in the last few years, and I think so much of his stuff still plays. I'm
Totally.
disappointed that his recent special didn't include as much of his new stuff because his new special is like old bits.
Yeah, I
is,
read
yeah.
that as a lot of those
Weird, and
bits.
people are like, "Whoa, he made this special about telling you the jokes for the last time, and then he's going back and telling you old bits." I think he's got a lot of bits that speak to today's culture and world, and like these bits about the cell phone being in your pocket. What's the battery at? Like you live
Right.
and die by this phone. Everywhere you're at, you gotta go. It's like I gotta be somewhere. I gotta go. Like he's like still doing these things that I do think relate to the world still. Yet he's like he did this special with all these old bits, and I'm like, show people that you're not like
That you've been growing, yeah. Because
Yeah.
all those Letterman appearances and stuff.
Yeah.
in the last 10 years or whatever were
Yeah, all new
great.
stuff.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
a lot
yeah.
of cool stuff in there.
Yeah.
What I found interesting is like every single, like I recently watched Ellen's last special before the one that she did.
That
The
just
one-
came out or
just
whatever.
came out, yeah.
Ellen
And,
Page.
Ellen DeGeneres.
Is this here and now?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
I love that.
That's
And it's
special's
like
incredible,
it's
yeah.
the
Really good.
like they're kind of contemporaries. I'd say they're sort of like peaking right around the same time. Like
Yeah.
Ellen went off the air in 2001, and so like she's very much of the style where there's a story, there's an arc
Yeah.
to her set, and with Jerry, it's just like it's like he just took any one of his single appearances at a club. Any one of those bits could have been the entire
Absolutely.
10 minutes that he did or 5 minutes. So there's no story there. There's just like, okay, this is my one
No.
A
bit.
million jokes. Yeah.
And he's
And
never
how-
been
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah,
It's very
like,
joke
there's
dense.
there's no transitions even between a lot
No,
of these
I'll tell you
bits.
what I like
Like,
about
bang, bang,
Chinese
bang.
people.
that's another different.
Let's
Yeah.
get
While
into
we're on
that.
the subject. While we're on the subject, which
Yeah.
I think is funnier
It
than
is
what it
funnier.
is in the video. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I was kind of
I
bummed
always
out
like
by. I
that
was
too.
like, oh, I'm sorry that's not there. It also makes the transition a little more logical as to why you would even do that
Yeah.
transition. Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a lot of like racist stuff that doesn't hold up. Whatever. Or,
And like, I
Right.
don't think there's bits in there that I would never do, but
Like
aren't
what?
that
do
like,
them now. Come on.
I wouldn't do the bit about Chinese people, but
The
I
chopstick
also
thing?
don't
Chopstick
think
thing?
it's like that terrible. Like when he actually gets into
Right.
it, it's like
Yeah.
you pull back and you go, but then it's like he's like, I respect that they're sticking to this thing.
Yeah, he
And
does say, I am
like
impressed. or
he's
whatever.
not like he's really not like he's dark, but
Yeah.
he's not that offensive.
He's just so flippant. It sounds like
it's like whoa.
It sounds a little nastier than it really is, just
And-
because of his tone of voice or
also
something.
it's like it's the 90s. So it's the thing. Like, there's just, it's not, doesn't excuse it, but it's just sort of like, I don't think people were just as aware as they are now, and to like, oh, we're being a dick.
Well, even the man and woman stuff too, where like women are looking at you right now thinking I could manipulate you, and like that even to me felt like something people probably wouldn't say.
But there is some that do like the stuff about like catcalling. He like actually makes a really strong point about it. I saw that one recently. He does that on the Seinfeld show, and he it's like so funny. I was like, is this the last option? Honking the car? Like, what do you expect she's gonna do? Jump? Oh, I didn't know he felt this way about me. Like, that's like,
that's a good bit.
I think some of the framework of it is like makes it seem like it's more dated. Like, here's the difference between men and women,
right?
And it's like, you don't need to frame it that way. I always get frustrated when a comedian does that, because sometimes comedians will open bits, be like, here's the thing about the current, Me Too movement.
Right.
It's like, your joke's not actually that offensive, but you're setting yourself up for failure.
Well, but I remember him talking about that catcalling one. Like, it felt like he wasn't saying, here's why men are idiots. Like, first he was saying, we're just doing this. Yeah. Here's some ideas we have. And I kind of like how it almost seems like he's saying, this is fine. This is who we are. But then you realize he's subtly taking men down, which I think is pretty great. And he's looping himself in. But what he doesn't do a lot, and I think what makes me think some of it feels dated by today's standards, is I think audiences these days, we've said this before a few times on the podcast, demand more of a personal connection to their comedians. They want not just self-deprecating, but actual like revealing. Seinfeld's never been about that.
Got was the Halloween engagement joke where he goes, "I was engaged once. That was bad." Yeah, that's like the closest.
But the Halloween stuff,
the Halloween stuff
from his life,
but it's so not vulnerable.
Yeah.
Right. No. That's
you know what I mean? Like he never gets vulnerable.
No, and that's an interesting
He always keeps us at a distance.
But he is. I think one of the best, John Mulaney once made a great point, which is like, people don't realize how dark Seinfeld is. Like, there's like all those horse jokes. Like Mulaney says, one of Seinfeld's darkest jokes is the movie theater one, where it's like when people try to throw out their cups or whatever at the movie theater. It's like, no. The deal is, I open my hand, it drops, I walk out. Like, that's your job. Like, that's a dark joke. That's him being like, this is how society works.
Yeah.
Right.
And people like, it's like this like facade he puts on, because he has so much fun telling these jokes, and he goofs around a lot, so people think he's not dark.
And he doesn't stay in one area for too long. I mean, he can exhaust any given subject, but he won't keep on talking about how these people who work there are, lowest part of society or whatever. Like
he makes his point and he moves
fill in
on.
the blanks sort of on your own.
Yeah. He because I think he tries to make it be like he'll make fun of doctors, but he doesn't want to be like the profession is bad. He just makes fun of what they do.
Yeah. He's very good at walking that line, it seems. So he doesn't want anyone to hate him. He doesn't really make any enemies with anything.
Very few. I was telling a story today about like the one of the Seinfeld episodes, the Puerto Rican Day Parade, was very controversial. And they talk about how a lot of the controversy came just from the name, not even the episode itself, because there's very few things other than the flag burning that's actually offensive. But George Shapiro, his manager, says right before we taped the special, were all these protesters outside the theater. And he goes, it was like very weird for Jerry. And Jerry walked right over and just started talking to these people.
Really?
And immediately they let down their guard. He was so nice to them. And he was like, hey, how's it going? Like, and just was like, thanks for coming. Like, just like really nice. And they were just immediately taken aback. And they were like, oh, this guy's not a mean person. He didn't mean any malicious intent. Because he talked to me, he's like, we didn't mean to offend people by that episode. It was literally just, we picked a big event in New York that would cause traffic. So there's a lot of things that like Jerry never means to mean malicious intent, but it does. But he is just very likable. I think that's where I was going with that. Is like, I think that he doesn't make a ton of enemies.
I feel like he's less likable these days.
It's interesting. It's an interesting. This is a whole nother debate too. I mean, I could go on for hours because I know so much about Jerry, but he goes back and forth all the time. He'll do one interview where I get so mad at the things he's saying, and then he did one recently where he was like, stop going on the college comments. Like, I would never say that about colleges. They know what it is. He was talking about Hannah Gatsby's special, being like, people are talking about it. That's what you want to do and stand up. And he's like, the audience decides. And if the audience is liking it, and like, he's very progressive in it, and it's like opposite
I
a lot
feel
of
like
it.
he's playing it safe too. Like,
I think so,
It
for
sounds
sure.
like he never really wants to give his whole
Yeah.
opinion because
Yeah.
he knows what a shitstorm that
Right,
could
He
be.
goes
because-
back and forth all the time. It is an interesting thing. I will say there's definitely times where I go, as because he was my favorite growing up and stuff.
Right.
And I have many heroes who aren't liked by people anymore.
Well,
but
that seems to be very common in comedy. Like, it feels like people at a young age find certain things funny and they grow out of that. I'm talking
Yeah.
about comedians, not audiences. But as they age, their point of view doesn't necessarily shift.
yeah,
I see that in a lot of comedians. It seems that as they get older, like, oh no, I'm like, can I not like you anymore? You seem detached from sort of where society is now.
Yeah.
But is it because you're afraid you can't make fun of the things that you used
Or is
to
it
be
because
able
you're a millionaire and you
to?
don't live in
Yeah.
this world?
Well,
yeah,
that's
it's
it, too.
like
You're no longer in-
$15,000 on a Vespa.
Yeah,
Just-
you're no longer
Well,
in touch
and
with everyday life.
Yeah.
Like, what's the deal with a portalet? You haven't been in a portalet.
Well, in the
30 years.
episode of Comedians in Cars with Kevin Hart, they're driving past a shanty town and they're making jokes about the homeless. And you're like, you're in a sports car,
Kinda
man.
punching down,
You can't-
guys.
yeah.
yeah.
You look like a total dick,
Wild.
you shithead.
Yeah.
You don't know anything about a shanty town. You don't know what the fuck's
Yeah,
going on.
little out of touch.
So, but I don't know, like, I again, like what Chili's saying, I don't know how malicious any of that is.
it's just sort of ignorant.
At the beginning of this special, he's so sarcastic and like,
doesn't- I think it's
but
the-
it's a lot of it is punching
the
up.
truth is, like, he just doesn't think a lot. I think he just wants to make people laugh, and that he doesn't. But he's not caring. Like, I think he said at one point he cares more about comedy than his kids or something like that.
Yeah, everybody
which is
says
like,
that. Roseanne Barr had that big thing about that too.
yeah,
well,
well,
I
she
guess
says-
she's probably not the one to quote now.
but
She must have done it better. Clearly,
I think
She's
that
the-
it honestly
she'll
is
stand this time.
and he says comedy is his number one thing. So
Right.
he doesn't really have a conscience, which is a weird thing. Seinfeld's this like very positive person. He's like he's very happy in a lot of ways, and he
doesn't strike me as happy to me.
He
Yeah,
like a
it
lot
does.
of comedians talk about, like Judd Apatow will say, like, you called Jerry Seinfeld, like, hey, how's it going?
Oh, yeah,
like he
it's
doesn't,
mellow,
but
he's
he
nice.
doesn't
It's
suffer
like a
from.
facade, though.
Yeah,
like-
I mean,
I
I think
don't know
it
if
feels very much like a character, though. Like
Yes.
the
Really?
character of Jerry is what we see on stage, whereas, like, because I've a lot of people
Yeah.
have talked about, oh, he's being supportive and positive in personal dealings, but I think that comes back to that he doesn't put himself out on the stage.
He's a showman, man.
or in
He's
the
always
show.
got a mask on, I think.
Really? I would
don't know.
100% argue that.
No?
Especially since, well, I guess maybe it's him that's saying this, but he always argued that the art of stand-up comedy is the art of becoming yourself. So actors
But he
work
never
so hard
talks
to
about
dissolve. But he is himself.
I mean,
Who cares
yeah,
how he's
it's
talking
his
about
point
himself?
of view.
This is
maybe,
a hot.
yeah.
I think this is a hot debate. Like, this is
Yeah. Well,
what people talk about. Hot
Well,
debate.
it's
I don't think he
audience.
wants.
Yeah, I don't know if
he
anyone
doesn't
cares.
want to reveal too much about himself. I don't think to the
But,
world.
yeah.
And
No,
that's
but I
fine.
bet you it's just because he doesn't find humor in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he could
Yeah.
talk about his,
Well, that's the thing,
birth
it's
of
like
his
he's
kids,
always
but
like,
he's
I
like,
don't-
this isn't funny.
Yeah,
Who cares?
He talks
It's
about
way
it on
funnier to talk about raisins.
a lot. How it's like, I don't care
He's
about.
right, probably.
I don't
Just-
care about the truth. Like, tell me a lot. I want to laugh.
Right.
Yeah, I just need
Which
a lie
is
at the end of this.
like, I think it's an interesting debate. It's like, well, sometimes the truth is funnier than the lie, and that's where I sort of disagree with him in a sense. It's
Right.
like, yeah, but sometimes, like, you were talking about some comedian the other day who you're like, you asked him what the real line was from that
and the real
movie,
one was funnier.
and you're like, the real one was funnier, and it's like, so why do people do this sometimes?
Yeah,
Sometimes
his
we
joke is
force
like-
the lie, and then sometimes we go the other way where we're like,
Do you know the
they're
example?
so
Do you know
truthful.
what you're
I
talking
can't remember. I think it's Freeborn, to be honest. Yeah, Jay Freeborn.
Ooh,
I know this is
throwing
not.
him
It's
in.
not throwing him under the bus at all
Yeah,
or whatever. I think
okay.
this is a cool thing. Yeah, because
Yeah.
I talk about Kellett. My buddy Kellett does this all the time too. Of like, if you're making up stories or whatever, and I believe you, and I'm in it or whatever, that's good. But
Sure.
if there's any fluctuation to the story, like, or if there's any part of me that's like, fuck off, like, get out
Right.
of here, then I'm not going to trust you. And then as
Right.
soon as you go into your next bit, you're already on wrong footing with me. You know what I mean?
no, I
if
hear
you're
you.
presenting it as
whatever
something real.
sounds more sincere.
Right, exactly. And your story can
It's a
be
story.
completely fake. Do you know the Woody
Yeah.
Allen bit about the moose?
Refresh
This
me.
insane story about he's like, I shot a
if
moose
yeah,
in
it's
upstate
great.
New York and I
Oh.
strapped him to the front of my car and
And show up at a
and I
party.
didn't knock him out. I didn't kill him. I just knocked him out. And so he wakes up on the front of my car and he's like signaling for a turn. Like, it's obviously the
Right.
craziest. Obviously,
Sure.
it didn't happen.
Yeah, sure.
But he's delivering it
So
in
much
such an
detail and
insane
passion.
way that
Right.
there's no part of you, no one in the crowd is like, wait, what? Did that fucking happen? Get out of
Yeah,
here.
I mean, there's obtuse jokes obviously where the audience is like, oh, the idea for that was just for a punchline. He doesn't, or she
Right.
doesn't think that we're trying, like,
that we're dumb enough
Yeah.
to think it's true or something.
Yeah.
But some, what is the freeborn joke? There's another joke that's a better example, I think, and I think it's Jake Leland's, where he goes. I talked to him about this. I was like, man, you're losing people on this. I feel, man. Where it's like, I was driving with my dad. We get cut off, and my dad goes, "You fucking clown." And we see the guy pull over at a gas station or whatever, and out steps a clown. It's a guy in a clown outfit. And then we pull up behind him, and my dad comes out, and he beats the shit out of this clown. And he takes the clown's nose and puts it on, and he's like, "Who's funny now?" So that's the joke.
That's just a terrible story about a terrible man.
Well, exactly. And then I'm like, wait a minute, your dad fucking beat the shit out of
Yeah,
the
that's not
clown
cool.
thing is possible, and it is hilarious if that
But
happened.
the fact that he beats him for no reason.
Yeah, you
is
gotta tell me
pretty
about your fucking crazy dad, dude. Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
And so, but now that I don't believe that, the second half of that story, now I
Yeah.
don't believe the clown thing. And now he goes into his next bit about whatever, and I'm like, I don't believe this either. Fuck you.
believe you
know
brush
what I
your
mean?
teeth.
there is a
It's
difference.
funny.
Like, we talk about, like, what comedians believe and what audiences believe. Like, there's comedians who I'll watch, and it's like, I don't believe a lick of that story. And it's like,
Yeah.
you know, but audiences are loving
crowds
it.
are eating
they're
it up, and that's
clapping.
fine.
And it will grind my gears, because I'm
Really?
like, I'm like, come on, like, there's no way that.
But then there's someone, I
Yeah,
mean,
that
we
conversation.
don't say his name too often anymore, but Louis did a special.
Yeah.
And I remember I can't remember what the bit was, but he said, so Tuesday I was talking to this woman, or it was Thursday. It doesn't matter. It's not true. And then he kept going. And I was like, whoa, you just like, before you even got to the punchline, revealed that this is not a true story. And I thought that
It
was
can
really
work the other
crazy.
way, though. There was Albert Brooks's last appearance on Letterman. He, like, opens up. He goes, "I got a confession to make. She's been keeping me up all night. Like, I was, like, calling my wife last night, and she's like, nobody's gonna care. I've been working in a studio. I haven't done anything, so I made up these stories." And then they're the most outrageous stories. Like, so
Right,
I heard you
sure.
were buying a gun
Yeah,
recently.
sure,
So
sure.
I just got back from the Amazon. And he tells this story, and like every beat's like, "Yeah, I shot a guy like in the sock aisle." Oh man, like, and it turns out he was a fan, so it's okay.
That's part of the bit. It makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
So that really works. So again, it's like if you're doing the obtuse thing, it's fine.
Yeah,
But
it
then-
also says it's like completely individual to the person and
Sure.
how it sounds coming out of your mouth and stuff. You got Steve Martin on the wall here,
Well,
man.
yeah.
Like Steve Martin, so much of that is made up.
Oh, yeah,
Obviously,
obviously.
that's fine, and no one cares or whatever.
Right.
But if anyone else, if a more stoic person told a Steve Martin joke, you might be like, wait,
Oh,
what?
yeah.
Like. You actually think that your mom should die? Yeah, or whatever.
Well,
like,
that's something we talk about
Classic Steve Martin
sometimes.
bit.
you know that bit?
No, I don't know.
My mom asked me for $5 for some food. I say, hey, I work for a living. Or it's like so over the top. That joke is great.
Yeah, it is great.
But if, I don't know, Jeselnik made that joke, you'd be like, whoa, what?
Right.
Like,
and that's a case of, I think the greatest comedians are the ones that their writing matches their voice, which we
100%.
don't
Yeah.
always see,
and I
right?
think Seinfeld's done a good job of being
I would
like,
agree.
I am this, I guess. I don't know.
It sort of speaks to that when you talk to somebody about Seinfeld, they immediately know the Seinfeld.
He's almost a genre.
Yeah.
Like it's a Seinfeldism, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
So, but you know, same with Steve Martin. He's kind of the same thing. But you talk about, I don't know, like, you know, I don't know, Patton Oswalt to an extent.
Right.
People, he's like, well, okay, is it early Patton Oswalt when he's a little bit darker, or is it later Patton Oswalt where he's got a little bit more hope?
Way more confessional.
Yeah,
now.
it's like
But Jerry's pretty much Jerry, everything
Yeah.
he does.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me that he's only done like
3 specials?
3 specials,
Yeah.
2
he
albums.
is angrier now. I think. I feel like he's like
Yeah.
young Jerry is way more like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
This is weird. And a
But
lot
now
of
he hates
Seinfeld
people.
is.
He's
And
impatient
now
with
he's
people.
like, it is a lot darker. I still love a lot of it, but I do see it's like he's not as likable as he was.
Well,
in his
because
early days.
of all the privilege and riches he's had, I think when someone's complaining to you and they're worth $950 million.
Yeah, but at the time of this special, he was worth a ton of money too.
That's
No,
true.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
No,
I don't
that's
know.
true.
But I mean, all this material is material he'd
Oh,
been doing
you're right.
since
That's true,
forever.
from
So it was
1981.
born out of
Yeah.
that hunger, and
Yeah,
now it's
maybe
like,
you're right.
you know, I only want to hang out with other comedians because they're the only ones who are going to understand me. So let's drive around in this vintage DeLorean and talk shit.
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
I got a little tired of that show. I really liked the inside baseball of it all and the
Yeah,
talking of
that's why-
stories. But then
yeah.
after a while, I was just like, you guys are kind of patting yourselves on the back. a lot
I've
of the
heard both.
time.
I think that it's a weird thing for me because it's such an interesting show where he says he's the same person all the time, but it literally seems like he's a different person in every episode. Like some
He
episodes
adapts to
I
people.
love him. Some episodes I'm like, he's so funny, he's so cool, he keeps the show together. Then other episodes I'm like, shut up. Like the Tracy Morgan episode this last season, he's like telling Tracy how to Tracy asks him questions, he gets like almost angry and he's like but then there's some like the Dana Carvey episode, they're just goofing around. It's awesome. Like
The Ellen one
he's
is
like
great
just
too,
like
yeah.
giving Dana impressions to do, and like he just loves it. Like it's fun. The Ellen one is fun.
Ellen
Kate
one's really
McKinnon
funny.
one. They're the Kate
Oh,
McKinnon
yeah,
one. They're
yeah.
like
Yeah, they're very
doing
silly.
voices at the table and stuff.
I
and it's
don't
like
think
great.
you could have a bad time hanging out with Kate McKinnon.
Probably
you know,
not.
like, she just
Although it
lifts
is funny,
everything up.
someone made a great like point. It's like with both the Kate McKinnon and the Ellen DeGeneres, it's like he's never talked to a lesbian before. He asks questions about. He's like,
Oh
"So you
my
hate
gosh.
men's penises or whatever."
He has no-
They're like,
But
"What?"
he probably has no idea. I don't
Do
know.
you
Growing
wear
up in
pants to
1954,
bed?
like
Yeah, he's very. It's like he's just like, why?
Yeah, just be cool, man.
Yeah, which he can be, and it's like it's
Yeah.
weird because Jerry's so night and day for me, and he's such a big influence on me. So it's very interesting watching him.
He seems most
develop and
comfortable when he's around people he genuinely thinks are very, very funny.
You can
And-
tell that in the
100%.
show too.
Yeah.
You can tell that.
he's not. I don't know, but I almost feel
There's a couple episodes
that
where I'm
as
like,
well, like
you like didn't riff or go like have any bits with this person at all, and then you see him
Right.
with like Brian Regan, and he's
Yeah,
just
they're
like
giggling like
oh
crazy
my
and stuff,
god,
yeah.
like just goofing around and making fun of flushing the toilet, and like they're just talking about nothing because Jerry's at his best when he's talking about nothing.
Sure.
You know, I mean,
And
it's
as an
that
interviewer,
thing.
I think he does best with someone else who's like sort of that born presenter,
Yeah.
who's always on. Like him with Colbert was sort of the same thing.
Yeah.
It's almost like they're co-hosting a show as
Yeah.
opposed to having a conversation. I don't know how great he actually is at having a real
Yeah.
conversation as
Yeah, him
opposed
with
to
Letterman is the same
co-hosting.
thing. David
Yeah.
Letterman, he did one for the Netflix series, and there's so many
Oh,
funny things.
that one
and
is
David
wicked.
Letterman
That
calls him out
interview
on his
rules.
bluff a couple times, and he calls Letterman out on his bluff. Like,
Right.
they're both like making fun of each other's like because David Letterman is so humble now,
Mm-hmm.
and Jerry's a little like cocky, so they both kind of like make fun of each other.
But
a couple
clearly
times.
old friends, like super comfortable with each
Yeah,
other.
yeah, and they both have so much
They have a
respect.
shorthand that like almost no other two people in the world have.
Yeah.
Like it just they've shared
Yeah.
this weird experience together. It's interesting.
It's-
yeah.
I mean that's a nice thing about some of those episodes of Comedian in Cars.
true.
Is sometimes you just see him with old pals, and it's like just fun to watch old pals riff. Like the
Leno one's good
The
too,
Michael
that episode.
Richards
Leno
one
one's
is
really
so
good.
great.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah, that one is too.
I mean that one is one of my favorites, and I'm like it's probably people like I can't watch it, but there's so many funny things and emotional things that happen in that episode. That's like
yeah.
whoa.
some of them are where you could tell he's in a bad mood the day that they're recording it. And you're like,
Yeah,
the Barney
totally.
Mader one or whatever. That one
Yeah,
is
there's
from
some
the first season. You're
there's-
like, oh
the-
man,
Yes,
Jesus,
he
he's
just
short
I
with
hate
people.
when he's like
But it's not. I don't know.
explaining
I don't
how to
think
do
he can.
comedy to people. It's like you brought them on the show because you respect them.
Yeah,
And
I
so
thought-
why are you?
Yeah.
And it's great when some people like he almost makes a sort of sexist joke with John Mulaney and John Mulaney like about John Mulaney's wife, and John Mulaney like shuts it down.
Oh, good.
It's
Yeah,
great.
yeah,
It's like
yeah.
boy, John. And it's
John
like-
Mulaney feels like to me modern comedic sensibilities of being vulnerable mixed with that.
Yeah.
Well, he's
Jerry
he's
Seinfeld.
an amazing joke
I mean, he's-
writer.
obviously, he's been influenced by Jerry, but like,
For sure.
But he's also very vulnerable. But he also seems to keep us at a distance.
I think John Mulaney is lower status. As this is like an improv
Absolutely.
point of view, I guess too, or whatever. Like,
yeah.
But it would be bizarre if John Mulaney was as cocky, I guess, as
Yeah.
Jerry.
Yeah, I mean, he can be dark and mean too.
Right, exactly,
But he also takes himself down quite a bit.
right.
too.
The light bulb in your head
Yeah,
that goes off when you think of John Mulaney is like,
the,
oh,
the
little
crashing
boy.
episode
You know what
they
I
did
mean?
with him this season where he like played a dick because like they got the wrong. It was supposed to be Ben Holmes as the opener, not Pete Holmes.
Oh, okay.
And then Pete Holmes makes fun of how he's a dick, and he's like, sometimes we're all a dick sometimes, and it's like that's how you are in this business. It was a big show, and he got the wrong person, and he didn't treat me very well, but like that's a reality, and it's like an
Wow.
interesting take on that. I'd like Crashing a lot. I think
Yeah, I gotta watch
for
more of that.
comedians, it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
very
Is
good.
season 3 out already?
Yeah, just finished.
Oh wow, they're
I
that
didn't
far?
even watch it. Oops,
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
behind.
Telltale said they're done now.
Oh, they're done.
He's like,
Oh,
he's
yeah.
allowed to
Alright, I
make
gotta
more,
watch
but
this.
HBO said, please don't make any more.
Really?
Please don't make any more.
Maybe
We're
all
not
the money will
canceled,
go to
but they said,
Showtime.
please don't return.
Please
So
don't
we can
make
get
any
I'm Dying
more.
up here back on the air. Come on.
I didn't like that show as
I
much.
know.
It was okay. I was okay.
But they set up so much shit at the end of the second
we're
season.
such nerds. We
Oh,
can
we're
watch
total dorks.
No, totally. No, no,
God,
no,
it's
no.
fun,
I know
man.
comedians who can't watch those shows. Like
I know. Yeah.
they're like, it's like
It's
so
too
real.
dramatic. It's
But-
too
Yeah.
like.
I sometimes I get so wrapped up in it because I love the world as much as I
Yeah,
love it.
yeah.
Like,
What did you guys think of the Birbiglia movie?
Which one?
Oh, I liked it
Uh,
a lot. Don't think twice.
Don't think
Don't think
twice.
twice.
But I talked to a
Think
lot of
Twice was
improvisers. And
all right.
I loved it. I loved it.
I really liked it. There's a conflict with like, it's very much made like obviously if it was just made for improvisers, it would be a better movie. There's examples and stuff in it that you're like, oh, this is just to communicate to the real world,
Yeah,
what
right.
it's like if how awkward a situation this would be.
Yeah, it feels like they took the worst people from a bunch of different troops and somehow put them all in one, and they
Except
would never
for-
be friends.
Except for
Personalities,
there's
yeah.
one
Yeah.
character that's super likable, and
Right.
that's because, and I also not just because I've been in love with her for a long time, but the
Kate
Gillian Jacobs
Makuji?
character.
Oh, Gillian. Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
at
yeah.
the end, she's like, she just keeps doing this because she loves doing it.
Yeah.
Like, there's that
Right.
actually one of my favorite scenes is towards the end where she's doing the scene and he like comes in and she's like, no, I don't want to come to Weekend Live or whatever.
Right.
Like all that show. She's like, I just love doing it. And I talked to a buddy of mine. He's like, yeah, that's one of the few characters I did relate to in that movie. Too. It's like, I just love doing improv.
But like every single person in that cast was a really good improviser. So
Yeah.
you know, it's like it's not just like an actor playing an improviser. These are all people like are from UCB and Second City.
sure.
It's like so they're like they probably know a person who was that
That kind of
person.
person,
So
yeah.
they're
Absolutely.
like,
I think there's that like and
just
some of the
wouldn't be
improvisers were like
think
that I know were like it was almost hard to watch because some of it hit too hard on the head. And
Yeah.
like obviously the most cringeworthy thing is the Birbiglia character
Oh my god,
hooking
yeah,
up with his student, which
yeah.
Well, which you just see a lot, I'm sure. Like, you know what I mean?
I'm
like,
sure it used to happen a lot more than it does
Right,
now.
exactly.
Like,
That's what I
these
mean.
places
I'm like, you
create
read that
rules for
kind of
those
thing a
types
lot.
of things.
Plus, his character was just so bitter all the time
Yeah.
too.
But
We've known that
you can
guy
imagine that
too.
person as well. You
Oh
know what
yeah,
I mean?
no, yeah.
I think that there's definitely good things and bad things. I loved it when I first watched it. 'Cause the other
Yeah.
thing to me is there's so many friggin' stand-up movies.
And
And we don't
wasn't
see a lot of
any
improv
ones,
movies.
yeah.
And
No.
like that's a really
I'm
nice
so
other
sad
world.
that the Del Close movie isn't getting made.
Yeah, because Mike Myers was supposed to be in it or
Mike
something?
Myers was going to be Del Close,
Yeah.
and then the funding got pulled, and Mike Myers like, I got a
That
career, I got to
hurts,
walk.
man.
Yeah, I got a career.
And I mean,
Yeah.
like,
The book is good. Yeah.
He's on the Kevin McDonald podcast talking about how he used to hang out with Del Close back in Chicago, and just like this time when he went to like a party and was reading Del Close's horoscope, like doing tarot cards, but it was
Yeah.
hockey cards.
Okay.
And it's just like, so this is a guy who like is intimately knowledgeable of this life. Like he could be him. And
Yeah.
like, you know, Del Close is like one of those people like Lorne Michaels. Everybody who's worked for him has an or worked with him has an impersonation of him because he's such a huge character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just,
presence.
it's like, that would have been really revelatory to have
and
that
those
as a
are great.
movie.
Like I had a blast watching the Doug Kenny movie with Will Forte and stuff.
Yeah.
I thought there was a lot of funny and like cool like John Lennon as Michael O'Donoghue was awesome. Like that he just nailed that so well. And like I mean, unfortunately, we didn't see enough of it, but who better to play Chevy Chase than Joel McHale, a guy who's like a huge fan of him and then worked so closely with him.
That movie didn't work too well for me, man.
You didn't like that one as
No,
much?
I didn't like it.
Okay.
I didn't like McHale as Chevy Chase.
I thought it would be better because he knew him so well. But I guess the
Yeah.
point was the movie wasn't about him. It was about Doug
Right.
Kenny. They just put him in because he was Doug Kenny's like best friend.
Yeah, it was an interesting movie. I feel like it was trying to be too many things.
Right.
Like
Okay.
it was sort of almost a docudrama, but also wanted to be a comedy.
Right.
And I don't think it really succeeded at either.
Right.
It just felt a little messy to me.
Yeah,
But it was an
that's
interesting
fair.
But
story.
in a
but-
way that's almost kind of representational of the
No, that's not
Lampoon
good
to
enough.
the
Not
extent-
good enough. No, it has to be good.
Did you watch the National Lampoon documentary before?
That
No,
documentary
That-
rules.
that-
man.
What's the name of that?
It's called Drunk, Stone, Dead, Brilliant.
Yeah.
And it actually
yeah,
makes
right.
the movie better because
Really?
you get so many more little tidbits and references
okay.
that they talk about in the documentary. Because obviously I didn't grow up with National Lampoon. I'm so much younger than that, other
Right.
than the films I know, but I didn't read the books or the
Okay.
magazines
Magazines,
rather.
yeah.
that-
Is that on Netflix? Does anybody know the
No, I had to hunt for
Okay,
it.
I'll
I
have to hunt for
remember.
that.
Yeah.
But the other one is, and what's it called again?
What's a movie called? Yeah.
The one with Will
The movie
Forte.
is called A Futile and Stupid Gesture.
A futile and stupid gesture. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, which is the line from Animal
I
House.
still haven't
Right.
seen that. Yeah.
Yeah.
We need a futile and stupid gesture.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I don't know. I liked a lot.
Did you
I love Will
but
Forte.
Did you like
too.
Birbiglia's first movie? Sleepwalk with Me?
I still haven't seen that.
That changed my whole
I've heard
life,
it's
man. That movie's
fantastic.
nuts. I liked that movie way more
I
than
gotta watch that.
Don't Think Twice.
Really?
Yeah.
We should do a Berbiglia episode sometime, but after I see.
He's an interesting
Sleepwalk
stand
with
up
me.
for sure.
Oh, man.
I'm not sure how I
So
feel
bizarre,
about
yeah.
it. I like him and dislike him at the same time.
You have to be in the mood for it.
He's
It's like
so
a meal.
calculated. It's like, and then I did
What's
this.
It's like
and
pretty
it's
wild
like-
storytelling versus
Yeah. It's
almost a
jokes
TED Talk,
almost.
yeah.
But it is like a TED
I like
Talk.
both like
Well,
and
I mean,
dislike
like
him. It's a weird thing.
his first movie was basically a dramatization of a
play or
moth,
something.
Well, it's like
Yeah.
a moth storytelling thing that then became a This American Life
Right, yeah,
episode.
yeah.
Then This American Life produced it as a movie, and it's like, when Ira Glass is one of your executive producers, there's going to be a little bit of artifice going on with this situation.
Yeah.
Mark Maron's in it too, I think, or something.
Is he?
There's cool parts of him getting on the road for the first time, and it's like, and I don't know, a lot of those stories are relatable as a stand-up or whatever, and just like the relationship troubles he's having, and him trying to make it work, and it's just not right, and they're staying in this relationship that's like.
I have to
My
see
buddies
it.
and I have Jordan Foisey and I wanted to watch that movie and drink every time we related. Like, oh no, we're gonna get
That
plastered.
would kill you. You mentioned Marin. He's an interesting cat to think about who was sort of coming up parallel to Seinfeld,
but does not like.
totally different. No, yeah.
I don't think he doesn't like him as a person. I don't think
Right.
that Maron's now he's way more mellowed out that he doesn't have any negativity towards people. But he talks about like I've heard him multiple times on his podcast say that he can't watch Seinfeld. He's like,
Yeah.
like, there's nothing, there's no vulnerability. He talks about all like he's
Feels
not
formulaic.
real. And I mean, I haven't watched a lot of Maron stand up. I like him.
I
as
mean,
an
some
interview.
people hate
I
him
think his
too.
book is
I mean,
fucking wicked. Yeah,
But
his book is great.
I think like I respect the opinion. Lots of people don't like Seinfeld, and they're my
Yeah.
friends, and that's okay.
Sure. But
You
Maron
can't
seemed-
help it what makes you laugh. You know
Yeah.
what I
Well,
mean?
totally.
Like,
I mean,
whatever.
and I always felt like Marin was sort of an underdog that I kind of wanted to root for. He seemed
Yeah.
like I was always aware of him, but everybody else who was his peer was sort of doing better than him somehow. But I mean, that's part of his narrative too. I mean, he's doing okay.
Well, now
I
he's
think,
doing
but I
fine.
think he
Yeah.
also realized
Yeah,
that
yeah.
like
Since his podcast empire launched.
he just figured it out, though, you
bitterness
know what I mean?
kills you, and
Yeah.
it's so much that like it's weird
Yeah.
listening to him now because he's such a nice guy now.
Right.
But
There's like a long time where
there's
he was
people that won't
not
talk
a
to him
nice guy.
anymore, and that's huge. If
Like
you
Yeah,
burn
yeah.
the
those
entire
bridges,
Jon Stewart thing where it's
Yeah,
like,
sure, yeah.
oh, you want to say you're sorry, but you only want to do it on the podcast.
Yeah.
And like,
Right,
no.
yeah.
Adam
yeah.
Sandler will never talk to him again. I don't think. Like,
Yeah.
there's a couple people. He's made up with a few people, but but you burn that many bridges. Like he
Well-
did it to himself a lot, and I don't want to
But
say
I mean,
that
he's the
mean.
first person
No, I
to
hear
admit
you.
that he's done it to himself, which makes me feel as
Exactly.
genuine. Any remorse that he has
Absolutely.
feels genuine because he's like, I did this. This is my fault. I was wrong.
Yeah.
And that feels real to me. I think everybody's
And he
had
gives
that.
the nice thing now is he gives a lot of people opportunities to do that on the podcast and stuff.
Yeah.
Like he talked to Robin Williams about that type of thing.
Oh, man, that's such a
Gallagher
great
and all these
episode.
people.
That Gallagher episode is
Pretty
intense.
wild. I haven't listened to the whole thing. I listened to like the first half, and I was like,
Gallagher
he-
walks out.
Yeah.
He loses his shit and
Yeah,
walks
yeah,
out.
yeah. Has
They
he
did.
talked about if he'll have Seinfeld on the show, or is
No.
he like, is that someone he wouldn't have? I think he would.
there's certain people I'd love. Like Seinfeld would be so.
It'd be great to hear Seinfeld.
Right?
Yeah.
I'd love to hear Chevy Chase on it. I think that would be so interesting because of the relationship he has with Chevy Chase from the roast and stuff like that.
Right.
Because there's so many people I'd love to just hear them like talk for an hour.
Yeah, no
And,
kidding.
like,
And that's a
'cause
great platform.
You get vulnerable, and
They
I think
do,
Jerry
yeah.
Seinfeld would get so vulnerable. Like
That'd be
I don't know,
really
that can
cool.
be
Norm
so-
Macdonald
I
is
don't know.
even vulnerable. Like
No, yeah, talking about his
I
gambling
love
addiction.
Norm,
That
like,
that
about
episode
The
is
Mike
Talk
great.
about his
Myers episode
childhood.
too is fantastic.
So do you guys think, looking at Mark Maron and Jerry as
Versus
kind of
Seinfeld,
as like people sort of like on a parallel track as far as when they were working on their career. Do you think, in a way, Jerry's type of material is no longer the sort of the what the public demands, whereas Maron's on the rise because people want that intimacy and vulnerability?
It's interesting because I don't know if Maron's on the rise, but
I don't think so either.
Yeah,
I
right.
sort of see what you're saying.
People like Maron.
The style.
appeal to different people.
People. I think one interesting thing too, and it would be cool to get your opinion on this, Julie. Of like, I've noticed that a lot of Netflix specials now are not even like formulated like a special. You know what I mean? Unless it matches like the person. Like Neil Brennan's thing of 3 mics is like. Well, I can't even just go up and do comedy for an hour. Like, that's not even what the public wants anymore. You know what I mean? I have to give it a format.
It's interesting.
Or
like,
New Baby
Pete
with
Holmes
Maria
always
Bamford
says
or
things
whatever.
like it's comics. If they're not in the moment, it's not interesting anymore. If you're not there and present, and Seinfeld is not really. I mean, he makes very few. He can, if something happens, he's able to riff on it because he's been doing this for so long, obviously.
Right.
But he's not.
You're talking about with the crowd or whatever?
Yeah,
what do you mean?
But like Pete Holmes does make it's like if you go up on stage and you're kind of like in your own world and just doing your jokes, then audiences don't respond as much anymore. And I think that's true to an extent. I think if you're still a great joke writer, like I think we have
Mulaney seems to
very
be
like
just going.
a lot of our friends,
But he'll have an aside here and there, like something will pop in Mulaney's head where it seems like where he'll let it out or something. Whereas Jerry, it feels almost like a tape recording.
I would argue. Oh, really? I feel Mulaney's. But I don't have a problem with these tape recording people because just do whatever the hell seems to be what you want to do and what the public seems to be wanting of you. You know what I mean? Like, it's just working. But like, it would almost be insane to me if next year Seinfeld popped out a special that was so deep about his family.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to hear any of this. It's like,
listen, what am I going to tell you?
You know what I mean?
I've had a rough day. Like it turns into Richard Lewis or something.
Sort of, you know what I mean? That would be insane.
Crazy.
But also, it'd be bizarre if Rory Scovel came out and did a very calculated hour. You'd be like, what the hell? Where's the person I wanted to see?
What a great experiment if these guys switched
you know what I mean?
styles or something.
But it would also be terrible. I don't think the crowd would want that.
You speak to your voice.
Wants to, But also, you talk about like classic versus like nowadays people want something more intimate. I don't know if that's necessarily true at all when you listen to fucking in the 1977 Richard Pryor Live on Sunset Strip.
Well, that's pure intimacy.
That's
right
crazy
there.
intimacy. Yeah, you know what I mean? That's as
true.
real and it's personal and stuff. And but you wanted that from Richard Pryor because he was good
that
at
was also
that.
very
You know what I mean?
groundbreaking too. It was something that we weren't used to hearing, right?
It kind of felt
It
like
was-
Lenny before him and stuff, and Lenny was talking about personal stuff, but Lenny wasn't as good at it as Pryor. But he was kind of the first person to sort of do it.
Right,
Be like,
yeah.
let's talk about me.
But I'm a rarity, and then I love George Carlin's early stuff, and as we get farther and farther.
You
into his
are
career,
rare. That's crazy. Nobody says that.
I like the AM side of AM FM. I just listen to that record all the time, like that. And like the Divorce Game Show is one of the most like perfect bits ever.
Wow.
Like,
Have
Calvin
you heard
is
that?
amazing.
Have you heard the album that he did at the Playboy Club? It was like him and
I've heard pieces like the radio. Is that the one with the wonderful wino?
No, this predates that. It's,
wow,
it's
okay,
like
maybe
he
I
did
haven't heard
as him when he was still in a duo, and I'm completely blanking.
Jack Burns, right?
Yeah, it was them
man,
at the,
that is early.
them at the
Yeah,
Playboy
yeah.
Club, and it's like
That's like his first album.
Yeah, and I'm like, I can't believe this is George Carlin. Like this, and that's a case
love
of a
some of
person
that
who's like,
stuff.
really evolved as a
love
voice.
some of
So,
that.
Chili,
I don't like the poetry. It's just not for me.
But do you like the Hippie Dippy Weatherman stuff?
love Hippie
You
Dippy
do?
Weatherman.
Yeah.
Oh wow!
I
weird.
like 7 Words is fine. But to me also like the baseball bit, which was like when he did for
Saturday Night Live?
TV. He did it on SNL. He did
Yeah,
it
that
on Letterman in the '90s again. The baseball bit is
versus
amazing.
football or whatever.
And like some of those bits, I do love that. But then like the stuff he was doing in 2010s where he was like, "This is the consumer's poem." It's like I don't want to hear
2010.
this.
He was dead.
Not 2010, but like I guess
Sorry,
mid
yeah.
2000s.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Modern
it was
Man?
like
Modern Man is good. You don't like
I
I love
don't
his
like that
90s stuff, man. Like it was
Jamming in New York.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
borderline into that poetry stuff. Like it would just be lists but like just so I don't know how he memorizes the rhythm of all that and like gets it out so well. But
See,
it's
I
also
don't
very
like that
clever.
stuff.
I love that
don't-
stuff.
but to me, like
I don't like the hey man, you know what
I love
mean?
it.
Like there's
I
just
love the
nothing to it
character
for me.
I love
Yeah,
it.
you like
Wonderful
it.
Wino is so like the up and down of it. It's so perfectly
Interesting.
made. The punchlines are there.
That was one of, because I sort of listen to a lot of Dr. Demento, and
Yeah.
he'd play that one a lot,
Right, yeah.
on there. So that's like my what's burnt into my early
Yeah.
formative comedy mind,
Yeah.
is like that kind of stuff.
And he hates it. One of the things I read Last Words recently, which was one of his books.
I
And
liked
it's,
Last Words.
and there's a lot of things I like about Last Words, but he's so adamant on, like, he's such a hater on things. Like, he hate formulaic, he hate Hollywood, and to a point where it's like, it's almost like, I feel like it's unhealthy. Like, it's like he just hated things. Like, he called Lorne Michaels a cocksucker. He's like, that guy's a head over heels cocksucker. Like, just fake. Hollywood, fake. So he moves so far away, and it's like, yeah, but there's, sometimes that stuff is great. Sometimes the stuff where it's like, it's just so tailor-made just to make you laugh. And it's just like, it's like good. And that's fun stuff. Like, I loved Get Smart as a kid. Get Smart is such a fantastic
same, yeah.
show. I mean, in a sense, there's so much formula in that. And it's like, I mean, it was sort of originating that formula. So maybe that makes it a better thing. But, not to say that I still watch the formulaic sitcoms. Like, there's a lot out that I don't like. But
it's the most popular thing out there. Anything formulaic with like same with their pop music, man. It's like the same four chords.
because it's
and-
marketable,
They're hating
because
it
you
so
know
much.
it'll sell.
Exactly.
They
Anything
do, yeah.
familiar,
It's hard.
the public will buy. The lowest common denominator likes the thing that they're used to.
But I mean, there's an art to a pop song that takes some serious talent to manufacture, just like there's art to like a person who's making that like right down the middle perfect joke, which is like, I think kind of what Seinfeld does. Is he captures that pop comedy sensibility of, I'm going to be dark enough that I'm happy with the darkness here, but I'm going to just keep it accessible enough that everybody can get a lot. Like, because this is 1998 coming out of a show.
It's
It has
interesting
this,
because Carlin is his idol in so many ways. It's sort of like the Letterman Carson thing, where it's like they're so different, yet they idolize that person. And I think they both have mutual respect. Like, I think Carlin likes Seinfeld, and I think obviously Carson liked Letterman.
Well, I mean, Carlin was in the opening bit of the special.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
yeah.
Did you ever see
that lineup of comedians was like, just 1998
I love
comedy
All
and
straight
encapsulated.
white guys, but
Yeah.
half of them were
Well,
not.
well,
But at
Carol
the time,
Leifer and
Carol
George
Leifer's in there.
Wallace.
That's
Right.
true.
Jerry's
Yeah.
friend George Wallace.
Yeah,
right.
Both of those people he adored.
Yeah.
Very
Paul
And then,
Reiser, so
Paul
many people
Reiser's
don't
in the
think
opening.
Paul,
I don't think I've
Paul
ever seen
Reiser as a
Paul
comedian
stand-up.
is like,
Oh man.
the brown brick wall of like comedy shows in the 80s and 90s where I'm like, that's how I knew him. And it's like my sister, what, you guy from Mad About You? No,
Yeah.
he was a
No,
comedian.
let's not
He'd be
forget.
good on Comedians in Cars.
Oh, it'd be
Check him
amazing.
out.
Yeah,
It would
yeah,
be
yeah.
good.
There was an opening. One great thing about this special too, coming back to the special.
Yeah, why not?
If we can do that.
Why not?
Is the amount of time you could tell of like attempts and stuff, like that boron joke off the top.
Right.
We were talking about this, and he said this before about how many different elements he went through the periodic table.
Oh,
of
really?
elements.
Oh,
Oh,
that's
yeah,
great.
because boron is just a funny word. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
And I think he tried other elements, and they weren't funny enough.
Yeah,
And then
I've
you
had
gotta test them in front of that crowd. And
when
you're
I
like,
was in a sketch troupe, we would write different things, and we had a couple people who were newer to comedy in the troupe as well. And I remember they said, they wrote something that was like, I've got 15 shoes or something like that, or 16 shoes, and I said, say 17. And they're like, why? And like 3 of us went, 17's funnier.
17 is a funnier number. Odd numbers are funnier
Odd
than even
numbers
ones.
funnier, yeah.
I don't know
but,
why.
but 17 is also better than 15
Well,
because
it's-
15 is too round.
Yeah, it is
It's a
round.
divisible
And
by
the
5,
17 is
and
like,
7 is a longer
where's
number.
that 18th shoe?
Yeah, there is.
Well, that
Especially
happens
when we're
with
talking
any-
about shoes.
Even
Yeah.
consciously, you don't
that
register it.
happens with any-
Subconsciously,
that
you're
happens
thinking,
with any odd number.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
The Steve Martin joke of he's watching a Vegas show and he's like, look at all the tits. There must be 57 tits on that stage.
that's so great. And then Homer Simpson borrowed that later for spring break. Marge, guess how many boobs I saw today? 15. 17 would have been better. Well, I also was
Call the
reminded of
Simpsons
the
writer?
Simpsons. I mean, we could do Simpsons references all day. But when he was talking about the Halloween costume
Yeah.
and the mask and stuff, I love the part when in The Simpsons one time Milhouse had a radioactive man costume, and Lisa says, "What are you supposed to be?" She says, "I'm radioactive man." I don't think radioactive man wears a plastic smock with his own picture on it. And then Milhouse says, "On Halloween he would."
Yeah.
That's such a great joke. I remember I had a Scooby-Doo costume, and it was that stupid plastic brown, the face of Scooby-Doo.
Sure.
And then you had that terrible elastic and the staple. And then a yellow and red smock that had a picture of Shaggy and Scooby-Doo in red on yellow.
Aww.
And it said Scooby-Doo. And to me, that made no sense.
Yeah, why would he
But he
have
had
this?
big...
Yeah.
Just give me a brown smock. That would have been way
I think
better.
that's such a good testament to Seinfeld, is that he has purposely picked so many things over the years that he doesn't feel are going to change.
It's true. Yeah.
Like he talks about, like, he never wanted to make the show Seinfeld like become like yellow, like, and which is a weird description of it. Like, I don't want this weird show that people are like, what is this?
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
so many of the topics on that show, like we're talking today, like there's about 3 or 4 that don't hold up, and then the rest are like timeless, and you can watch that show, and so many of those bits, maybe you don't live that lifestyle, but like you were just talking, and you're significantly younger than Jerry Seinfeld, and you can still relate to that bit of
Totally.
like the mask, and that's great.
Yeah.
For me, it was the hobo costume, because I still have memories of my dad getting a cork out of a bottle of wine that he had just finished and burning the end and half-assed putting on a beard with the burnt cork, and then
Cork
sending me
beard.
out, there's your
Cork
Halloween
Yeah,
costume.
even if it's not the exact same experience, he finds the
He finds
the
things that
flavor of
aren't the time. He
Yeah.
finds things that are like, oh, this has been happening for a while, and I don't see this changing. I don't see them changing the staple and the thing. And like, obviously they could change some of it, but a lot of it's like, they still turn the light on in the bathroom when you go to the airplane. Like, they still point that way in an airplane. In the
It's true,
video,
yeah.
you
I'd
won't see
be-
this in the audio, but he does this whole pointing bit where he's like, what is this vague pointing? Like, I'm
Yeah.
getting out before you're
There's
getting
really
out.
nothing on there that like a 14-year-old would hear now and not understand. I don't
Well,
think.
that's the thing, and like my relationship with this special is interesting because this is the first special I'd ever watched, and I was young. I was maybe like 9 or 10 when I first saw this special. 'Cause I
Right.
started watching Seinfeld like in the first grade, and I remember just seeing this special. And there's so many goofy things. There's so many, like the cow bit about the expiry date. I got that so young. So many Seinfeld things I got as a kid. So many things I didn't get as well. But there was so much relatability to it. Like, he's got a perfect level of like silliness and stuff. And I
very
don't know.
surface level. It's
Yeah.
you can explain a concept so easily, so quickly, and
I used
cleanly.
to watch it over and over again and just watch his cadence and be like, "Oh, I like that. I
cadence
like
is so
that."
funny. The swears.
It's so interesting
Yeah.
to watch as a kid.
And he doesn't waste any words. He's not a rambler in any way.
No.
Like, it's very
it's
economical.
like, even if you don't like him, he is someone.
He's a
I just think you
wordsmith.
should watch him. Like, a friend of mine, when we saw him live a couple of years ago, was like, I didn't really like him, but he's also, I'm glad I watched him because you can
Yeah.
see why he was good. You can
Everyone
see why he was
respects him, I
famous.
think, whether they like
Yeah.
It's,
him or
it's
not.
kind of like Rush to me. I don't
Sure.
like Rush,
Sure.
but
But
I'm
you're
like,
this
I
is
appreciate.
undeniably good.
It's it is.
Yeah.
They are incredible musicians.
Whatever this
who are
is, they're
totally
good at
cracked.
it.
Yeah.
They're
And I don't
it's
mind that all these people seem into it or whatever. I don't
Yeah.
know. Go
It's
for it.
so good, and it's so it's just, he's just a wordsmith, and like he just knows how to get the most out of every joke, like, and just like beat it to death, for lack of a better term. Like, he just beats the joke.
Did you-
It's good. He moves on.
Did you hear the thing about how he used to? I don't know how true this is, but he used to look at his act word for word and then try to take out a word every day. Every time he did a show, he tried to take
one.
out
Oh, yeah,
a
I
word to
heard
make
that
it more
too, yeah.
efficient and
Yeah.
stuff.
I can
I was like,
believe it.
that's
I like
interesting.
that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a great way to work. That'd be a neat sort
It's
of.
also like OCD as hell. Like,
that'd be a fun night of comedy, like to do like an experimental, either sketch or stand up, where you do it like every night for a week or something, but every night the challenge is you have to take a couple
Take a
words
word
out or
out or
something.
I don't know
like,
if
yeah.
I've ever been like, I'm fairly calculated. I'm not as calculated as you.
I try to be
but
pretty
I
damn
like.
calculated, yeah.
I've recently realized that when I do stand up, I'm so like. I need to be a little loose, or it won't work. If I get too in
I'm
my
the same,
head,
yeah.
because I'm an improviser as well, and I riff with the audience and
Yeah.
things like that. And the best nights I have in stand up are ones where I'm loose.
Right.
And it's the same with sketch, even though I do write the sketch to, it's like, if I'm being loose up there and I'm not so overly touchy on the word, which is funny because I'm such a Seinfeld fan.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do as well. And I think when I
Right.
started, I was way more like that, and I was almost doing an
I'm like
impression
that
of
with
Seinfeld.
sketch.
Yeah,
Like
you
I
were actually totally. I
with
saw this kid
with
start,
sketch, I like it word for word. I like writing the jokes to
Yeah.
be very precise.
Yeah.
I enjoy wordy stuff like that. My favorite guy on Saturday Night Live is always Aykroyd because he could just memorize huge swaths of words, and it was so specific,
Yeah.
and that not everyone can do that.
Well, you were talking about because we were talking about Aykroyd, like you guys on the Saturday Night Live podcast.
That's right.
And,
Yeah.
and just his ability to create characters and words. Like I think he wasn't my favorite, but I think talent wise, Aykroyd was the best in those early years. Just
I agree. Yeah.
tremendous characters, tremendous impressions. Just
He was like
out of this
23 years old
world,
too.
and, like
Yeah.
he was-
Super young.
he was
Talented
crushing
shit.
it. Not the most likable necessarily, or
Yeah.
not the most physical, whatever, but just his way of like creating it. I do
He was
think
the best
most
pitch
talented.
man. Like I loved
Kid
all his
Costner?
commercials. He was incredible.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for coming in and talking to us about
Thank you.
Jerry Seinfeld and telling you for the last time. You guys have any final thoughts? Something you who would be the modern Jerry Seinfeld?
I think Mulaney was the
Mulaney.
best.
Yeah, I guess
He's
you touched on that.
Regan is a little bit younger. I don't know if he would be considered modern, but he's
Right.
definitely like that's the closest in terms of like the monologue style.
There's still a place for this style of comedy. Though.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
I think it's
accessible.
also just the individual
timeless.
of like, you just do whatever the hell you do that you seem to like doing
make
or whatever.
people laugh.
Because it's like talking about like, who's the next blank or whatever. And you're like, I don't know. I'm just me, man. Like, just did you read the article about Jordan Peele or whatever? It's like all these people being like,
Yeah.
he's the next Spielberg.
No, it's
Right.
like,
No,
no,
he's
the
just
first
Jordan Peele. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's just
No,
a guy.
it's
Why do we
Yeah.
always have to put someone on the
Yeah,
map as
up on
someone?
the next whatever.
It's but I do have a big respect. I think the place where I kind of came from is like my biggest respect is for comedians whose only objective is to make you laugh. And it's like sort of like that Norm Macdonald thing. It's like whenever you're trying, like just laugh. And
Yeah.
not to say that, and that doesn't mean that there's not a market for other people. I don't respect that.
But do
some
comedians
people
lose sight
want
of that? Or
something else.
do you think some people have a
I
different
don't know if it's
motivation than
lose
that?
sight.
I
think
wonder
that
if
the
people
world
try to
is
become,
just
they're like,
pocketed.
well, I can't
imagination.
do this because this person already kind of does that or whatever. You know what I mean? Where it's like,
Try to
but if
create
you're
it.
you, and this is an old Keith Johnstone thing or whatever. Do you know Keith Johnstone, the improviser?
No.
And he's an improv teacher or whatever. He's like, he invented the life game and all this kind of stuff.
Oh, okay.
He had a great thing about when you're trying to be original. If I'm like, give me 5 original ideas on my desk in the morning, your brain would go to the same place that everyone else's brain does when you're trying to be original, quote unquote. And then, in fact, the most original thing you could do is be you because nobody's you. You know what I mean? So
even if you're a little bit like somebody else, it still comes from a genuine place.
you might
and-
think it sounds like somebody else, but it is you.
You
know
can't
what I
really
mean? It's gonna
fairly
come
judge.
from-
Yeah, but there is a
Interesting.
different that like a lot of people are looking. I do think a lot of people look for personality over jokes nowadays, which I get to a certain extent. The world needs sometimes the different points of view, and you can't just be the joke guy. But I do love watching a Norm Macdonald special where it's just like those jokes are just so friggin' good.
Yeah,
and it's really nice sometimes to watch those specials where you just watch a Brian Regan and it's like, he's not the most deep person in the world, but I laugh my butt off when I watch
Yeah.
these things.
Well,
I
we're
watch
spoiled
those
for
now.
content.
Because it's
now.
the best version of that, like the Sandler
Yeah.
special too.
Yeah.
But
And
even though the
yeah.
Sandler special was all jokes and the Norm special is all jokes, it still sounds different because they're different people.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
I mean,
Right.
Norm's never going to do what Sandler does, and
Exactly,
Sandler's never
yeah,
going to
yeah.
do what Norm
and
does.
also like Hannah Gatsby or whatever, like you do you, and that's important as well.
Yeah,
you know?
there's
Like, we need to
absolutely
hear
a
this.
market for that.
Yeah.
I do think
Right.
that, but I just like I also think like there's always a market for, and it's interesting because it was like the Billy Crystal thing of like he got advice early on of like you should do more you and less impressions and stuff up there, and Jim Carrey did this right where he decided to drop all the impressions and
Yeah.
I agree with it to an extent, but I also have always loved watching Dana Carvey, and he's more of a sketch
Sure.
guy on stage, and his special is so opposite of being deep, and I don't think his special is necessarily the best thing he's ever done, but I do love watching him do characters and impressions. Like,
Well,
it's just-
and there's room for all of it, which is
Yeah.
great. And we have now that we have Netflix and different things like that. I mean, basically whatever you're in the mood for.
yeah,
can
and I think
find.
that's
It's
great too.
kinda
And I like
fantastic.
when I produce shows, it's always like, let's try to get a little bit of everything up
Yeah,
there.
let's
try
not
to
all
get-
aim to be this one style.
you
It's
can
not like
be a
that
joke
anymore.
guy. You can be an observational guy. You can be a
Yeah.
personal guy. And we still like all of it. Tell your story. And that's, the great thing about the world nowadays is that because of the, people come from different backgrounds and we're like, great, like let's put you on stage. And, but I do think that people still love Jerry. And I think that so much of it. And that's why I'm sort of bummed that he didn't do a special of some of his new bits, because he does have some things that
are great. Yeah, good job.
Yeah.
Not
Well,
just the
maybe next year.
gay king joke.
Never too late.
Yeah, got rid of that, I think.
Gay king, which is not that
Sex
good of a
versus
joke.
grade,
It's a
yeah.
bad.
That's a
The
good-
gay king joke is like a bad joke. I don't know why he would ever even defend it. Like he's got so many better jokes.
so
than
many
that.
jokes.
Right.
Anyway, whatever.
Whatever. Well, guys, where can we find you guys on Twitter and stuff like that?
man.
If people want to see you making jokes online, where would we find you, Mark?
You'd have to look. Fuck
You
you,
okay?
audience. No, just kidding. Hallworth
woods.
Mark.
Hallworth Mark.
Yeah, that's my handle for Twitter,
And what about you, Chili?
Chili Dog 44 Instagram, Twitter. Follow my sketch show Freaking the Beats on Instagram. We're hot and we're popping right now.
Awesome.
They're hot and popping.
Yeah.
And we'll go see you at Pay What You Can't.
Yeah.
And we'll see Mark's.
Yeah, come on, Dan. Come on
Ding at another bar.
to Comedy and Laughs at Social Capital Theater as well. That's always the second Saturday of the month. We're
There you
gonna
go.
Talk about that.
All right.
That's a fun time
These
as well.
guys are busy. Awesome.
Yeah, man.
And you can find Matt and I right here at Comedy Album Book Club. Thanks again for listening. See you next time.
Bye.
You know how to book flights and hotels. All you're missing is a tool to plan the travel experiences you'll have once you arrive. That's why you need Viator. Book guided tours, activities, excursions, and more in one place to make your trip truly unforgettable. Viator has over 300,000 travel experiences to choose from. Everything from simple tours to extreme adventures and all the niche, interesting stuff in between. So you can plan something that everyone you're traveling with will enjoy. Real traveler reviews give the inside scoop from people who've already been on the experiences you're considering. So you can plan with confidence. Free cancellation helps you plan for the unexpected. And 24/7 customer support means you can travel worry-free. Download the Viator app now and use code Viator10 for 10% off your first booking in the app. Find travel experiences for you. Do more with Viator.
Looks like you need a vacation. Enter the 5-Hour Energy Where Will the Tide Take You sweepstakes. You could win a $10,000 dream beach vacation. Imagine jet setting off to a tropical paradise, having fun in the sun, or diving at a gorgeous reef. It's up to you. No purchase necessary. Go to 5HETide.com for official rules and to enter. That's 5HETide.com. Enter today. Ends June 30th, 2024.